Hope you had a Merry Christmas. Happy New Year coming up. This is the 2021 Diecast Games Event 8, the push. Very simple. We've just got a simple descent off of an automatic gate. You're going to come down one length of track, set up here in Dining Room Stadium, and you're going to hit a block with a cushion attached to one end. Here's our Judge, our GTO tuned, that's going to be our test car. He'll come down, he'll hit it, and it's from the right side, 0.76. Here we go. Button boys. First, his Porsche 928, 1.21. Next, his Turbulence, 1.38. As you can see, we're going to put the car that's leading in the front. 4114 Racing has a Mustang. He's going to be 1.66. And he also has a Testarossa that's 1.53. Red Pill Racing next. There's a BMW M1. He's going to have 1.48 and a Carbonite. Ho, ho! 2.04. Good for the Carbonite. Here's Michael's Diecast Garage. Here's his Evo. Evo's going to be 1.03. And next, the Roger Dodger, 1.06. Next up, Jeremy Irons Diecast Racing. He's got a Esprit, which is going to do a 0.79. And he's got an Arachnarod, 1.03. Captain K Racing is next, a flat-out 442, 1.4, and his Turbulence is going to make 1.51. Next, Team DRT3K, Chevelle, 1.59, and next he has a Turbulence, 1.43. Next up, Po' Boy Racing, he's got a Silverado, 1.16. Next, a Ferrari, 1.51. Next up, R&R Riker Racing. He's got a Lancer Evo, 0.87. And his Medieval, 1.01. Next up, Lily's Boneyard. Got the Mercedes first, 1.59. The Datsun, 1.42. Next up, Booga Basement Customs, his Aston Martin, 0.73. The Datsun 240, 0.76. Next, the A-Team, Crazy Canuck, Silverado, 1.21. And his Hyperliner, 0.96. JX4 Racing, next, the Porsche 928. He gets 1.61. And his Lancer is going to be 0.87. Next up, G Buggy Racing, a Jaguar, XJ22, 0.96. And the Way Too Fast, 1.33. Next, H-Town Hustlers, Ferrari, 1.53. And the Nissan, 1.27. Next up, Pepler Racing, Dodge Van, 1.02. And the Lotus is 0.89. Next up, Troy Racing Team. Here's his Chevy Cameo, 1.54. And the Ferrari, 1.39. Next up, 7th Infantry Division, a VW Bug. The Bug is going to go 0.85. And the Nissan Skyline, 0.88. Next up, Cut Rock Racing. He's got a Silverado and a Sidekick. The Silverado does 1.2. The Sidekick, 1.69. Next up, Mrs. BFG, Ferrari and a Datsun. The Ferrari does a 1.55. The Matchbox Datsun does a 1.61. Next up, Blue Line Racing, 67 Mustang. It's going to 1.61. And his Carbonite, 1.87. Next up, Road Rage Racing 2. He's got a Ford GT and a Mega Thrust. The Ford GT is going to do 0.79. Mega Thrust, 1.12. Uncle Elvis Racing, Studebaker Pickup. His first vehicle, 1.5. And the Nissan 300ZX, 1.28. Gut Feeling is next. He's got a Datsun 240Z and a Brit Speed. The Datsun would do 0.99. The Brit Speed, 0.89. All right, the 734 Outlaws. He's got a Pontiac GTO, 0.98. And a Silver Bullet. Whoa, look here, 0.86. Good job. Next up, Lady of Speed. She's got a Chrysler 300C. Going to get 1.09. And the Nissan 350, 1.99. Next up, Ty went on Sandy Mack. She's got a Lancer and a Roger Dodger. The Lancer's 1.06. Roger Dodger 1.01. Husky King Racing's next. He's got the Imprenza and a Super Blitzen. The Imprenza's 0.76. The Super Blitzen 0.78. The Jeepster, Big Al's Customs next. 1.24. And he also has a Rescue Ranger. 1.53. Next up, Redline Salvage. He's got an Imprenza and a Carbide. Redline 1.02 for the Imprenza. 1.09 for the Carbide. Aces High Racing 2020 Jaguar Type F 0.84 and a Speed Dozer 0.91. Metal Mania 3D. First he's got a Silverado 1.18 and an Aero Flash 1.35. Next up, Mr. Mom's Joe Matchbox 97 Corvette 1.78. The Time Machine is 1.64. Big Poppy's up next. He's got a flat out 442, 1.48, and a Carbonite, and 1.61. Hot Wheels Collection is next with a Ferrari. His first push, 1.09, and his Rescue Ranger. Oh, here we go, 1.61. Silver Streak's up next with a Porsche Carrera and a Super 8 Hemi. Carrera's right at 1. Next is the Super Hemi, and he's got 1 too. Huh. Next up, Nick Devers Racing, IROC Camaro, 1.42. Next is his Datsun 280Z, 1.23. League of Speed next with the Ferrari F40, 1.44. And his Acura Concept 1.17. Next up, Kaboom Racing, Rolls Royce 1.39. And next, the Sidekick 1.74. Big Rami's next with a Datsun 280Z and a Subaru tuned. The Datsun's 1.47. The Subaru 1.16. Next up, DXP Racing. He's got a Ferrari F40 and a Silver Bullet. The Ferrari does 1.56. The Silver Bullet, oh, look here, 2.3. Let you know how that turns out. Gen X Racing. He's got the Javelin and a Modena. 0.99 for the Javelin, 0.96 for the Modena. Next, Overclock Racing. He's got an Evo and a Mercedes-Benz. 1.12 for the Evo, 1.03 for the Mercedes-Benz. Mr. Mom Bubba, he's got a Charger and a Mercedes. The Charger does a 1.74 and the Mercedes does 1.6. R&R Rhett Racing next. He's got a Monte Carlo Concept and a Roger Dodger. The Concept car goes 1.37 and the Roger Dodger 0.96. Next is NJ Driving. Dodge Dart 0.85 and the Swoop Coupe does 0.45. Next, WR Racing, Wobbly Bob. Here's the Ford pickup, 1.33. Next is the Jackhammer, 1.28. Down Squad Racing's next with a Lotus Esprit and a Mazda. 1.11 for the Lotus. The Mazda RX-7, 0.97. Road Rage Racing next got the Gasser, 0.93, and the Honda CRX, 0.84. Rusty Rods Racing, he's got a Honda Civic SI, 0.87, and a Nerve Hammer, 0.96. Mr. BFG has a flat out 442 and a Datsun. The flat out does 1.44. The Datsun, 1.62. Hot Car Track next with a Silverado and a Shadow Jet. The Silverado, 1.45. The Shadow Jet will do a 1.36. Next up, Dirty Deeb Racing, 63 Studebaker and a Way Too Fast. The Studebaker, 1.11, and the Way Too Fast, 1.30. Next up, Your Nightmare Racing. He's his 67 Mustang, 1.8, and his Carbonite, 1.83. Rivera Racing, Mercedes 500 in the Datsun. Here's the Mercedes, 1.49, and a 1.5 1.5 for the Datsun. Next up, Scale Racing, Mercedes E470. He's going to get 1.64, and the Nissan 1.35. Rio Racing's next, Jaguar and a Skyline. The Jaguar 1.08 and the Skyline 0.99. Toon Tracks Racing's next. He's got a 44 Grand Prix. Got the 1.19 and a Mercedes 500, 1.44. Just for luck next, Ford Escort. Escort gets a 1.09. Next is his Mazda Miata, 0.89. Last but not least, RLO Racing, Ford Crown Victoria. 1.77, and his Mercedes, 1.64. So let's take a look at it. Top 16 cars. Points on the left-hand side, placing on the right-hand side with their distance. There's your first 16. Here's the second 16. We only placed 32 cars. The highlighted areas are the ties. So that's why the points are just a little bit different. You add them together and divide it by the number. Here's the car standings after 8 events. Realize that we have a slalom and the fat track free-for-all, so there are some cars that will still be racing the slalom, so they can add points. Some of the cars are through, with the exception of the free-for-all, which is the last event of the year. Everyone participates, so everyone can score. We're going through and looking at these are individual castings that have scored through the series with their total points listed. As we go down, here's our next to last group, I think. And here's the last set of cars. So that's every car that has scored the Diecast games to this point. Next up, we are going to have the team standings after 8 events. Your Nightmare Racing, Blue Line, and Red Peel all neck to neck, all within distance each other. Your Nightmare really scored big on the push. Then here's our next group. Down the line we go. We'll go through all the teams that have scored. And that will get all the teams that have scored to this point. Folks, we really appreciate you watching. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Next up is going to be the slalom. Take care.
This has been a Big Poppy Racing production.